I'm holding Technical Service Bulletin 20-087, issued by American Honda in November 2020, and it changes the automatic transmission fluid specification for over 4 million vehicles already on the road. This isn't some minor clarification buried in fine print. This is a complete fluid specification replacement that affects everything from your routine maintenance schedule to whether your transmission will last 150,000 miles or start shuddering at 60,000. And the way Honda rolled this out tells you everything you need to know about how manufacturers handle problems they'd rather not advertise. Here's what makes this interesting. There was no recall, no customer notification letter, no press release. The bulletin went straight to dealership service departments with instructions to start using a completely different fluid formula going forward. If you bought your Honda before this bulletin came out, your owner's manual still says to use DW-1 automatic transmission fluid. But if you walk into that same dealership today for a transmission service, they're supposed to drain it and fill it with something called ATF Type 3.1 instead. The manual you paid for says one thing, the Internal Service Directive says another. And unless you specifically ask your service advisor about recent technical bulletins, nobody's going to mention that the specification changed. Now, before you think this is just Honda being sketchy, understand that every major manufacturer does this. Technical service bulletins are how they communicate fixes and updates to dealers without triggering the legal and PR nightmare of an official recall. It's a gray area that technically benefits consumers. Dealers get the latest information to solve problems, but it only works if you know to ask about it. Most people don't. They just keep following whatever the owner's manual says until something goes wrong. The bulletin replaces Honda's DW-1 fluid specification with a new formula called ATF Type 3.1 for specific CVT and conventional automatic transmissions. And I want to be clear about what replaces means here, because Honda's language is careful. They're not saying DW1 was wrong or defective. They're saying Type 3.1 is now the preferred specification for certain applications going forward. But when you read between the lines and look at which vehicles are listed and what symptoms dealers were instructed to watch for, the picture becomes pretty obvious. DW1 wasn't holding up the way Honda expected it to in real-world conditions, particularly in hot climates and in transmissions that see a lot of stop-and-go driving. Here's where it gets specific. The bulletin calls out shudder complaints, delayed engagement, and what they describe as abnormal shifting feel in transmissions that were using DW1 according to the original specification. These aren't catastrophic failures. Your transmission isn't going to explode, but if you've noticed a slight vibration when your transmission shifts between gears, or if there's a half-second delay when you put it in drive, or if it feels like something is slipping momentarily during acceleration, those are the exact symptoms this fluid change is designed to address. And the fact that Honda issued a bulletin about it means they were seeing enough of these complaints to warrant a specification change across their entire lineup. To understand why Honda did this, you need to know what started happening around 2018 with their 9-speed and CVT transmissions in hot climates. Transmission fluid does two things simultaneously. It lubricates moving parts, and it acts as a hydraulic medium to transfer power and engage clutches. With CVTs, it's even more critical because the belt or chain is constantly slipping and gripping against the pulleys under high pressure. That creates friction, which creates heat, which breaks down the fluid's additives over time. In a conventional automatic, the torque converter and clutch packs generate similar heat, just through a different mechanism. DW1 was Honda's proprietary formula introduced around 2011, when they started transitioning to thinner, fuel economy-focused fluids across their lineup. It worked fine in laboratory testing and in normal driving conditions, but real-world use is different. When you're sitting in Phoenix traffic in July with the air conditioning on full blast, and the transmission is constantly shifting between second and third gear, the fluid temperature can spike well above what the engineers saw in their controlled tests. Combine that with extended drain intervals. Honda recommends 90,000 miles for transmission fluid changes under normal conditions, and you've got a situation where the fluid's friction modifiers start to degrade faster than expected. What dealerships started reporting back to Honda engineering was a pattern. Vehicles coming in with shudder complaints typically had between 40,000 and 70,000 miles on the original factory fill of DW1. They were disproportionately in southern states. And when technicians drained the fluid and looked at it, they weren't seeing the dark brown color you'd associate with completely burned fluid. It looked relatively clean. But when Honda's engineers analyzed samples, they found that the friction modifier package, or the additive blend that keeps clutches from slipping, had degraded significantly, even though the base oil was still stable. That's a chemistry problem, not a usage problem. ATF Type 3.1 has a different friction modifier package and a higher viscosity index than DW1, which sounds technical, but here's what it actually means for your transmission. Friction modifiers are additives that create a microscopic layer between metal surfaces to control how clutches engage and disengage. When they're fresh, you get smooth shifts. As they break down, you start getting that shudder feeling because the clutch material is sticking and releasing instead of engaging smoothly. The higher viscosity index means the fluid maintains its thickness better across a wider temperature range. So when your transmission heats up in traffic, Type 3.1 doesn't thin out as much as DW1 did. Think of it like this. DW1 was engineered to be as thin as possible, to reduce friction and maximize fuel economy while still providing adequate protection. It met the requirements when it was designed. But as Honda pushed transmission technology further, adding more gears, increasing power density, using CVTs in heavier vehicles, the margins got tighter. Type 3.1 gives them more thermal cushion. It's slightly thicker at operating temperature, which means better film strength under load, but not so thick that it kills fuel economy numbers or causes cold weather shifting issues. The TSB specifically lists the 2015-2020 Accord, 2016-2021 Civic, 2019-2021 Passport, and 2016-2022 Pilot. But there's a catch about warranty status you need to understand. If your vehicle is still under the powertrain warranty and you bring it in with a shudder complaint, the dealer is authorized to perform what they call a fluid exchange using Type 3.1 at no charge to you. That's covered under warranty as a goodwill repair because Honda acknowledges the fluid specification wasn't optimal. But here's the fine print. If you're out of warranty and you just want a routine transmission service, whether they use Type 3.1 or DW1 depends on when they last updated their parts inventory and whether the service advisor is aware of the bulletin. This creates a weird situation where two identical cars sitting side by side could have different fluids in their transmissions, depending on when they were last serviced and whether that particular dealership is following the updated specification. And because Honda didn't issue a mandatory recall or customer notification, there's no enforcement mechanism. It's just a recommendation in the service manual that dealers are supposed to follow. What the bulletin tells technicians to do is different depending on whether you're under warranty or paying out of pocket. For warranty claims related to shudder or shifting issues, the procedure is to drain the transmission completely, fill it with Type 3.1, run the vehicle through a specific drive cycle to purge any remaining old fluid from the valve, body, and torque converter, then drain it again and refill with fresh Type 3.1. It's basically a double flush. For routine maintenance on an out-of-warranty vehicle, they're just supposed to drain and fill once with Type 3.1 and call it done. Now here's where it gets interesting from a cost perspective. DW1 retails for about $18 per quart at Honda dealerships. Type 3.1 is roughly the same price, so you're not paying more for the newer fluid. But if you've been buying DW1 in bulk from online retailers or auto parts stores because it's cheaper than going to the dealer, you need to know that Type 3.1 isn't widely available yet in the aftermarket. As of right now, you pretty much have to get it from a Honda dealership parts counter. That might change as the specification becomes more common, but for now, using Type 3.1 means you're probably paying dealer prices for the fluid. I spoke with 3 independent transmission shops that started seeing a pattern around 2019, specific shudder complaints on Hondas with between 40,000 and 70,000 miles. One shop in Arizona told me they were doing fluid exchanges on 2 or 3 Accords and Civics per week at one point, and every single one of them had DW1 in the transmission. They started recommending an earlier fluid change interval around 50,000 miles instead of the factory 90,000, and the callback rate dropped significantly. Another shop in Texas said they saw the same thing with pilots and passports. The shudder wasn't severe enough to cause damage, but it was annoying enough that customers were willing to pay for the fluid service even though Honda wasn't covering it under warranty. What's interesting is that these shops weren't using Type 3.1 because it wasn't available to them yet. They were using aftermarket high-performance ATF that met or exceeded Honda's specifications, and it solved the problem. That tells you that the issue isn't unique to DW1 as a specific formula. It's that the original specification was too aggressive in prioritizing fuel economy over durability margin. Any fluid with a more robust additive package and better high-temperature stability would have worked. Honda just decided to formulate their own rather than recommend an aftermarket alternative. If you've already got DW1 in your transmission and the dealer tops it off with Type 3.1, Honda says they're compatible, but the full story is more nuanced. Yes, you can mix them without causing immediate damage. The base oils are compatible, and the additive packages won't react negatively with each other. But you're also not getting the full benefit of Type 3.1 if you're just topping off. The improved friction modifiers only work if they're present in sufficient concentration. If you've got 3 quarts of old DW1 and you add 1 quart of Type 3.1, you're diluting the new additive package, and you're still dealing with degraded friction modifiers from the old fluid. The TSB acknowledges this by recommending a complete drain and fill, not just a top-off, whenever a vehicle comes in for service. But in practice, Not every dealer is going to do a full drain and fill unless you specifically ask for it. Some will just drop the pan, replace the filter if your transmission has one, and refill with Type 3.1. That gets you maybe 60% of the old fluid out and replaces it with new. It's better than nothing, but it's not the same as a complete exchange. Here's the other compatibility issue nobody talks about. If you've been using aftermarket DW-1 equivalent fluid, and there are several on the market from Valvoline, Idemitsu, and others, those formulas were reverse engineered to match Honda's original DW-1 specification. They're not necessarily compatible with Type 3.1 because they don't know what Honda changed in the new formula. Honda hasn't published the full specification for Type 3.1 the way they did for DW1, which means aftermarket manufacturers are basically guessing until they can get their hands on enough of it to reverse engineer. So if you've been running aftermarket fluid, you need to either stick with it or switch completely to Honda Type 3.1. Don't mix them. Pull out your owner's manual right now and look at the transmission fluid specification page. It's going to say DW1, even if your car is on the affected list. Honda has not issued updated owner's manuals for vehicles already sold. The official position is that DW1 is still acceptable for use, but Type 3.1 is now preferred for certain applications. That's corporate speak for we're not admitting the old stuff was inadequate, but please use the new stuff. It's the same language you see when oil specifications get updated. The old spec doesn't suddenly become wrong, but the new spec is better, and if you have access to it, you should use it. If your transmission is still shifting smoothly and you're not experiencing any shudder, you don't need to panic and rush to the dealer tomorrow. But the next time you're due for a transmission service, or if you're planning to keep your Honda past 100,000 miles specifically, request ATF Type 3.1. Don't just say transmission fluid change and assume they'll use the latest spec. Ask for the bulletin number, it's 20087, and confirm they're using Type 3.1, not DW1. If they tell you they don't have it in stock, ask when they'll get it. Most dealers should have it by now, but smaller independent shops might not. If you're already experiencing shudder or delayed engagement and you're still under the powertrain warranty, document it and take it to the dealer immediately. The TSB authorizes warranty coverage for fluid exchanges related to these symptoms, but you need to report it while you're still covered. If you wait until you're out of warranty, you're paying for it yourself, and a proper fluid exchange at a dealer is going to run you between $200 and $300 depending on how much fluid your transmission holds. For those of you who do your own maintenance, Type 3.1 is available through Honda dealership parts departments and online through Honda's official parts retailers. You cannot get it at AutoZone or O'Reilly's yet. It comes in quart bottles, and you'll need between 3 and 4 quarts for a drain and fill depending on your transmission model. The procedure is the same as it's always been. Warm the transmission to operating temperature, remove the drain plug, let it drain completely, reinstall the plug with a new crush washer, and refill through the fill hole until it starts to drip out. Just make sure you're using Type 3.1, not DW1, because once you commit to the new spec, you want to stay with it. Check your VIN against the TSB list. I'll put the bulletin number in the description, and if you're on there, ask your dealer specifically about Type 3.1 at your next service. If you've already experienced shuddering and had it fixed with a fluid change, drop a comment and let me know what year and model you're driving and whether the new fluid solved it long term. And if you know someone with one of these Hondas who's been complaining about transmission weirdness, send them this video before they spend money on a bigger repair that might just be a fluid issue. Hit subscribe if you want more of these technical bulletin breakdowns. There's a lot of stuff that gets changed quietly, and most people never find out about it until it's too late.